Observation, reason, human understanding, courage, these make a physician. And we have a combination of such a speaker with us. He's Dr. G. Nagendra Babu, sir. He's the professor and HOD in the Department of Homeopathic Materia Medica at Sri Sai Ram Homeopathic Medical College, Chennai. He is also the author of the book Comprehensive Study of Organon, and he's also received the Best Doctor awardee by the TN Dr. MGR Medical University, Chennai. He'll be discussing on the pursuit of water dose. That is again a very great and the need of the hour. In fact, need of the students as well as practitioners. How everybody, I hope, is excited to learn on this topic. I'll hand over the session to you, sir. Welcome, and over to you.
Thank you, madam. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of my presentation in the webinar Homeopathy 360 Degree. First of all, I would like to thank B. Jain Group of Institutions, Homeopathy 360 Degree, and from my side, Sri Sai Ram Homeopathic Medical College, the management, the principal, the staff members, and my lovable students, and of course, my patients who taught me everything about the practical aspect of homeopathy. I owe them a lot. And today's presentation is, I titled it as Pursuit of Water Dose. Don't go by the name. I'm not going to discuss about water dose, which you already studied in your BHMS pharmacy and MD classes and everything. So this episode, this presentation, I kept it little differently. It is going to be a little scientific introspective of homeopathy. The idea came to me, like I have been teaching for years to homeopathic students. Most of the time, the students after final year or during their internship, whenever any criticism arises in homeopathy or any article publishes in any magazine or national, international magazines, it pains us a little bit. Okay, so in spite of all these efforts, in spite of all these efforts, we see this. Homeopathy, why it is so controversial? Some people call it as placebo, some people call it as quackery, some people call it as witchcraft, some people call it as a magic. Nothing but unscientific. It hurts us, guys. We teach homeopathy is both science and art, but still we feel we have not reached, we have not done proper, yet to be done a lot of things. We need a scientific basis. So usually we do that. A lot of things are happening in the world regarding this, and future will be ours. The first word to those doctors and those practitioners and those students who are depressed, I'll say, homeopathy is a newborn child in the history of medicine. We have so many medical systems in the world. Okay, in India, we limit ourselves to Ayush. When compared to other systems of medicine, homeopathy is just a newborn. 1796, we started our journey. Of course, the law is very old, but homeopathy as such started in 1796. Still a lot to go. Of course, right from the beginning, our homeopathy is a different science. It has been ridiculed. It has been attacked. The master has been attacked by so many professionals in the future. But still, it is our duty. The responsibility rests on our shoulders to do something to convince or at least to prove what is there in homeopathy. And we have to come out of with a solution to answer these questions. Yeah, fundamentals of principles of homeopathy. We have 7 fundamentals, and some books have added a doctrine of individualization is also in fundamental principles, but classically we have 7 fundamental principles. When we teach organon in our academic classes, the first 3 laws, law of similia, law of simplex, law of minimum dose, accepted by all groups of homeopaths. You know, like the senior students will know, homeopathy is divided in 2 groups, Some people call them scientific, some people call them as spiritual. But both the schools, they accept this law of similia, law of simplex, and law of minimum dose. For example, if you go to Richard Hughes, openly criticizes the theory of chronic diseases and all these things. But he sticks on the law of similia. Of course, he respects simplex also, but openly. Law of similia, no doubt, we have a scientific background, we have a historical background from other systems of medicines. But I personally feel we have to answer two questions. A doctrine of chronic diseases, which is criticized by many people as a semi-scientific and semi-philosophical subject. And the doctrine of drug dynamization, it's a great controversial subject. But Stuart Close says, for one thing, if Dr. Heinemann had to be given a Nobel Prize in medicine, that is to be law of drug dynamization or doctrine of drug dynamization. We celebrate this, but are we convincing, are we giving any substantialistic scientific proof for this drug dynamization? Because it is a time for homeopathy to reach out. No doubt, we are getting cases. No doubt, we believe our medicines are working. Of course, they do work. Our patients, in spite of all this ridiculed criticism, they are with us and they are seeing the results. But we have to expand ourselves. So this study, to make it a little different, previous presentations I used to have present clinical cases and my experiences. But today I am limiting myself to scientific aspect. I call it a scientific aspect. I wanted to do a little introspection to my own self, because I learned from my master, Order Sapere, dare to be wise. So I have taken a dare step. I hope you people like it. When I was collecting data or preparing myself for presentations in Organon and Metromedica, when I referred so many books, I could collect data or information regarding a proof on the law of drug dynamization. That's why I quoted first Charles Darwin. Yeah, the same fame behind survival of the fittest, evolution theories and everything. You know, Dr. Charles Darwin has experimented with minutely diluted ultra dilutions. Okay, if you go to Clark's Homeopathy Explained book, it's a very small book. You have Clark explained about Darwin's experimentations. Charles Darwin privately in his laboratory, he experimented with Drosera plants. The concept was like Dr. Charles Darwin has taken the carnivorous plant, Drosera rotundifolia. Every biology student knows about it. Drosera is a carnivorous plant. It feeds on insects, because the land or the habitat where the Drosera goes is devoid of certain chemical or salt elements which the plant requires. So since the land is, the habitat or the floor is devoid of the salts, so it eats the insects. It evolved to eat the insects. Whenever any insects sits on the petals of the Drosera plant, the petals closes down and digests insect, and it absorbs the salts. And Charles Darwin identified those salts as ammonia salts. So what he did is he wanted to know the sensitivity of the Drosera tentacles. He diluted the ammonia salts and gradually he started identifying and registering the sensitivity nature of the tentacles of Drosera plant. And his results were astonishing, and he really frightened and shocked by the results. He diluted ammonium salts to such a level that no material substance is left out, according to fundamental chemistry and fundamental physics. In spite of that, the Drosera plant was responding. And he made a notes of it in his personal notebook, but he frightened to publish it because he was hesitating to publish, you know, It was against the fundamental beliefs and fundamental laws of the then existing biology, chemistry. So Charles Darwin did experiment with microdoses, which can be quoted as a support of our microdoses. While presenting this paper, I searched for W.J. Boyd photographs. It was very tough to get it on Google. Photograph was not available. So I feel his experimentation is really getting faded. We have to protect it. Boyd, I got this message from the book Dr. Davle has written, Principles and Practice of Homeopathy, where he has written the experiments of Dr. Boyd. He created a sensitive galvanometer, you know, that old galvanometer with the sensitizing needles and machine will be there, and he modified it and he made it, he named it as a manometer. It's a sensitive galvanometer, and he practically and successfully demonstrated a dynamic power or some electromagnetic power existing in a dynamized water solutions. And based on the findings, he could group all the Metromedica drugs into 10 groups based on the manometer. And this also can be quoted as a scientific background or scientific principle behind how the water dose works. Yeah, I'm talking about theory. We have plusing potency and we have water doses. Some people call it as God's own liquid. You know that there was one senior doctor in Chennai who administers medicines in water doses. He says God's solution, because you can perceive God, but you cannot show or prove the existence of God scientifically on any machine. But it is our duty to do that. Dr. Boyd further extended his experiments. You can see in 1916 itself he started his experiments. Okay, the protocol here is the mercury chloride in crude form actually inhibits the diastase activity, enzyme diastase activity, it inhibits. But whereas when Dr. Boyd started diluting the solution, and when he started diluting, it was still inhibiting the diastase activity. But when he went to 61x potency, the decimal dilution, instead of inhibiting, the mercury chloride started activating the diastase activity. It reminds us Ansku's law, right? The minimum dose stimulates the medium dose kind of thing. So we have an experimented basis, but we couldn't proceed further. It reminds me, I was also teaching microbiology in my initial ages of my teaching. When you go through introduction chapters of microbiology, vaccination has been improved by allopathic or modern medical system as 90% success rate. But you know, when Edward Jenner started the vaccination methodology, the success rate was only 20%. The sheep on which he experimented initially, they died instantly because of some anaphylactic reactions. But by experimentation, by research work, today, modern medicine achieved the scientific level. It is our duty to advance and propagate the scientific aspect of homeopathy, I feel so. And there is one more celebrated personality, Wanamaker. I'm sorry, I couldn't get any photograph of him. If BJN publishers have any photograph, please do feed it on Google. Wanamaker did onion experiments. Okay, we know onion is rich in sulfur. That is why it's good for your vascular system. He has treated the onion bulbs. He has literally grown them on a soil. Okay, he prepared a trace. Okay, the soil trace filled with onion bulbs, and he treated them with various dilutions of sulfur, homeopathic dilutions, and of course he has kept some controls also, so which were not treated by sulfur. And the final result was like those onion bulbs treated with sulfur, they could grow enormously, and the size of the onion bulbs were very bigger when compared to the controls. And not only that, the mineral content like calcium, magnesium, potassium, and sodium and sulfur, of course, the mineral content of the bulbs were also very high. Now, logically speaking, when you dilute the, according to fundamental physics and fundamental chemistry or fundamental biochemistry, the dynamic homeopathic sulfur is not having any material content of sulfur, but still the diluted or highly dynamized water dose of homeopathic sulfur was having the characteristic of sulfur, and it could stimulate the greatest growth of onion plants. Science or superstition? We don't know. See, if you see, I want to quote here, homeopathy is ridiculed because of its ultra dilutions. Yes, because we cannot show any existence of material. Yeah, I know some people will be responding here. We have a recent experiments done by Dr. J.S. Ballari, the professor of IIT Mumbai, I hope so. And he did so many experiments on pulsatilla and aurum metallicum, and he limited himself to metallic groups. And he could demonstrate or microscopically or nanotechnologically, he should show the existence of the particular solvent in a nanoparticular level. That means homeopathic medicines do contain nanoparticles in spite of ultra dilutions. He proved it. But the technical problem was, even though nanoparticles were present in the diluted homeopathic medicine, whether pharmacologically they were active or whether they could bring out any curative response in the body still remained the question. But if you see, in all these, the previous prehistorical experimentations or old experimentations, whatever you call it as, the water was the basis. So that's why some other doctors in the future, they started experimenting on water memory theory, which most of the doctors are aware of today. Water and its power is not new to us. Excuse me for making it unscientific and religious, but I don't call it as a religious practice because it's related to my topic. You know, being a Hindu, I know the practice of achamanam. Whenever you do or start any puja, you take little amount of water in your hand and you consume it. Before consuming, you recite a mantram, right? So Hindus have given a special status to water. You know, while doing any vradam, we call it as vradam in South India, the pujas and all, we keep that kalasham. That kalasham filled with water, they recite so many mantrams and they chant their mantrams. And after chanting the mantrams, they'll ask you to either swallow the water or drink the water, or they'll give abhishekam. They put water on your head. They call it as, by chanting the mantras, the water is purified. Were ancestors superstitious, or they were scientific, or they know the power of water? We'll see in the future. If you go to other religions like Muslims also, before doing or performing any namaz or any other their pujas, their rituals, it is mandatory for them to clean them with pure water. And Christianity is not away from them. Remember the baptism, or if you want to convert to Christianity, you have to baptize yourself. For baptizing, they are using water. So water seems to be having a mystical power. So I call it as mystical fluid. Yeah, when I was searching so many files or videos over internet regarding this, so many presentations were done on water. Chemistry thinks that it understood water. Okay, they explained that it contains oxygen and hydrogen molecules. It is H2O. Is that simple? Most of the scientists will say water is not a simple solution. Water is something different and unique from other fluids or other liquids. We know even a small baby of 3rd standard knows water stays in solid form, that ice cube, liquid form, regular room temperature, and gaseous stage, evaporation or steam. And we have another state of matter, plasma, where it divides into submolecular ionic levels. Now, historically, being an organon teacher, when I teach organon history of medicine, till 18th century, the advent of the scientific spirit in the European countries, the scientists were accepting only the solid state and liquid state of water. Though gas was present, steam was present, they were not accepting it because you cannot measure the gas till 18th century, remember that. But when chemistry developed as a science and metallurgy came into existence as a science, when the chemists started capturing or holding the gaseous state in a cylindrical form and liquid form, till that period, though gas was existent, the chemistry scientists were never accepting. Now today, gaseous stage is accepted by so many chemists. Science has to grow, or we have to grow? Now this is my question. The question still remains. Now when I went to plasma level, it reminds me a quotation from Dr. Kent's simple substance. Simple substance, he termed it as a fourth state of matter. See, solid is one state, liquid is one state, gaseous is one state. There is one more state which is not visible to our spectrum, which we call it as simple substance, which we call it as Atma, which we call it as a dynamic power. Today, the science says it is ridicule. But maybe by 21st century end, we may come out with thorough experimentation. No. I'll present a case. I'll present an experimentation where you need not wait for till 21st century. So many things are happening in our world. Please wait for it. As I said, water is a mystical fluid. Okay, its surface tension is very high. Because of the high surface tension, the strider insects, you can see during our rainy season, some insects will be freely floating on the water surface. And this floating is because of the high surface tension of the water. And in America, I hope it's North America, there is a lizard by name gecko lizard. This easily walks on the water without any problem. It doesn't sink in. And that is why locals call it as a Jesus Christ lizard. This Christ lizard is called because Jesus Christ performed these feats, walking on the water. Unlike other fluids, the water can raise up against the gravitational force, Earth's gravitational force, which is very special to water. So water is a mystical fluid. So when scientists started observing all these things, they found out so many great inventions. They found out so many unbelievable characteristics of water. So this quotation is for us, for me. Don't get depressed, my students. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. I just wanted to present this gentleman. He is a doctor. He is a experimentalist from Stuttgart University, Germany. Professor Ben Koplin. His experimentation was very simple. You laugh at it initially, but see, you cannot deny it. He has done so many experiments with ordinary tap water that is present in Stuttgart University. What he did is, he has taken a beaker full of tap water from Stuttgart University, and he has taken one red flower and dipped it in the water and kept it for half an hour to 1 hour. No mixing, nothing, just kept it in the water. He didn't crush it, no chemical reactions in between. After that, he has just taken it out, and one drop of that beaker water was put on a slide, and he observed under dark illumination microscopy. And remember the pattern. The red flower was having a unique pattern. When the red flower was kept in the water could sense the shape of the flower, and it retained the shape of the flower in every single molecule of the water. Even after removing the flower from the water, the entire beaker water was removing the shape of the flower. And he could demonstrate it so many times visibly. And he tried with other flowers. I don't recall the names of the flowers. They are the European flowers. Excuse me. So he tried the same experiment with so many students of Stuttgart University, and he astonished with the results. The water could able to create different shapes with different flowers he tried. So his conclusion was water was retaining, trying to at least absorb information from whatever is dipped inside or whatever kept nearby it. So at least there is a physical contact of the flower in the water. But next experimentation, he tried to prove something different, which we'll laugh at. See the heading? Water even responds to the emotions. Okay, after this flower experimentation, he called a group of students from Stuttgart University, and he gave each student one slide, and he asked everyone to take a separate cup of water from the same tap. In the same time, every student will put 1 drop of or 4 drops of the treated water on each slide. Nothing, no touching, no dipping, nothing else. Every student will go there, and with the same time, in the same given time, same quantity of water on a slide. And see the results. The same tap water from Stuttgart University. Let us understand this with graphical presentation. Student A, he has put 4 drops of water on the slide, and you can see the individuality there. 4 drops were similar in shape. The memory was the same. And student B, you can see there is a similarity. And student C, you can see there is a similarity. Student D has put 4 drops, you can see the similarity. So, Dr. Coplin has explained homeopathic medicines can also be explained in the same method, and he was in support of homeopathy as far as this research is concerned. Now, being an Indian, I would like to use this experimentation for my own cultural belief. In South India, whenever you go to any Vishnu temple or any other temple, so the pujari, the godman will dip a basil leaf in the water and he'll give it as a tulasi tirtham. He's not mixing, he's not making any decoction or kashayam or aushadhi out of it. He's just putting the basil leaves into the tirtham and he's giving it as a holy water. Is it a science or superstition? Now today it is a practice back again in India. Everyone started, especially in high class people and educated qualified people started storing waters in copper vessels and silver vessels again. There is one great personality, I hope all of you know about him. He's an allopathic doctor, Dr. B.M. Hegde. I'm very fond of him. Okay, he is a very straightforward allopathic doctor. He's not an ordinary person. He was a retired Vice Chancellor of Mangalore University. Yeah, he's an allopathic doctor. And he says in olden days, ancient days, we used to feed milk. Indians used to feed the babies with the milk which was stored in silver vessels. What he says is when we store the milk in silver vessels, the milk will absorb the silver nanoparticles, and we know silver nitrate is an antibiotic, and the milk is safer for feeding the baby. So our ancestors know about this. Is it a science or superstition? Is it a blind belief? And today, Ayurveda people are strongly recommending we have to store our water in copper vessels overnight, and morning if you consume, you'll have a good energy. Science or superstition? See, a lot of questions will raise, and experimentation is the only answer. Then is one more experimentation. I may not call it as a scientific because the author or the scientist here is not a qualified scientist. He is from Japan, Masaru Emoto. I think senior doctors knew about him. This is a old theory only. Masaru Emoto Okay, just like Dr. Coplin, in 2004, he published one book with his own findings. Okay, he said water responds to our emotions. Water responds to our talking and the way we speak. That means water was behaving like a living creature. Most of the doctors all over the world ridiculed him. They called him as a pseudoscientist. He was just an author. But just for understanding, the point's sake, we'll discuss his presentation here. See the feelings of Masaru Emoto. Words are the vibrations of nature. Therefore, beautiful words create beautiful nature. Ugly words create ugly nature. This is the root of the universe. Unscientific, right? But practically, we have seen in so many pictures and we have felt our own selves. We felt. If you scold any girl, if you shout at any sensitive girl, she starts crying. No exchange of bacteria, no exchange of any chemicals to her. Only a single word could affect her mentally. So many chemical reactions happen in her brain with word. What is happening there? So unscientific. Please think about it. So this was explained by so many people, like storage of vibratory energy, which is more biophysics. We're not going deep into it. This is Masaru Emoto's experimentations, and he has treated water with emotions. Okay, he uttered the words, okay, with intentionally, and after that he crystallized the water and he observed it under electron microscope. Dark illumination microscope, specialized microscope, and you can see how the water was responding. The crystallized water, when he scolded it, you made me sick. You can see how ugly, asymmetrical formation it makes. When you utter a word to water, how beautifully. It reminds me of Nakshatra jewelry of Tata, right? The designs. So the beautiful symmetrical formations we can see. Yeah, again, it reminds me of my culture. Olden days, whenever any Raja or any other person, Rakshasa, scolds any Rishi or Maharshi, they used to curse with water. They take water in their hands and they'll shrap. Okay, I'll curse you in the name of God, and they'll throw the water on them. And we believe it worked. Superstition, right? And Masaru Emoto did not stop there. He experimented in so many liquids. Okay, he treated a cup of water before the prayer, Buddhist prayer, and after the Buddhist prayer. You can see the difference, how beautifully the water was responding. Yeah, I discussed this already. In religious practices, vratams and yagnams and yagams in India, whenever we do, okay, we treat the water with due respect. And in between, we'll be consuming the water, the energy treated water. Yeah, these are Emoto's experiments. See how it is responding. The symmetrical beauty you can see for the compassion, the word thank you, the word wisdom. And but when heavy metal music is given to it, you can see the vibrations. The heartening words like I will kill you causes ugly symmetrical shapes. If you scold any person, you fool, water immediately responded in asymmetrical form. Now, the previous slide was missing. It was a photograph of Ben Westin. Recently, I think last 5 years or 6 years back, his theory was very famous in homeopathic fraternity group. Jacques Ben Westin, he is not an ordinary person. He was because he's late now. Late Jacques Ben Westin, he is no more. In fact, we had a very great expectations from Jacques Ben Westin's experimentation. He named the theory as water memory theory. The principle, I'm not going deep into it. According the principle of this water memory experimentation of Jacques Ben Westin, he is an immunologist from Paris. Okay, according to him, the way basophils, the white blood corpuscles, when exposed to Ig antibodies, some chemical reactions like releasing of histamines and interleukins kind of things will happen, which can be demonstrably done by antigen-antibody reactions, which we already studied in our microbiology classes. But according to Ben Westin, when he started serially diluting, he wanted to see the sensitivity. In microbiology, we have that antigen-antibody sensitivity response also. To know the sensitivity of IgG antibodies, he started serially diluting the antibodies, IgG antibody levels. And for his astonishment, when the IgG antibody was diluted till 120x, the water solution, in spite of this non-material ultra dilution of IgG antibodies, according to fundamental chemistry, not even a single molecule of IgE is present in 120x. In spite of that, the basophils were reacting and they were chemically changing. And he produced his findings of his experimentation in the magazine Nature in June 1988. It created a great storm in the scientific world, because if they agree with this theory, the existing fundamental principles of biology, chemistry, and physics have to be rewritten. So obviously they ridiculed it. They didn't accept it. They have thrown it as unscientific. Yeah, it reminds me Dr. Heinemann's lifestyle. Heinemann was ridiculed when he found out dynamism theory. Nothing has changed till today. You remember Dr. Berzelius, the famous chemist of those days, who commented on Heinemann as he had been a great chemist had he not be a great quack. Heinemann called it Berzelius called Heinemann a quack because he invented the doctrine of drug dynamization. The same thing happens today. History always repeats. Dr. Ben Westin was ridiculed by so many books, so many scientific magazines. Scientists outright rejected his theory. But it reminds me another quotation by father of inductive logic, Lord Francis Bacon. Remember his words: truth is a daughter of time, not of authority. So today's authority may ridicule, today's authority may suppress this scientific experimentation and homeopathy, but truth always triumphs. Yes, I use that word because with Jacques Ben Westin, this is the core of this presentation. With Jacques Ben Westin, the water memory theory did not die. We have still a hope at the end of the tunnel. I introduce you to Dr. Luc Montagnier. He is a virologist. He is not an ordinary virologist. He was a Nobel laureate. He got Nobel Prize for discovery of human immunovirus deficiency virus. Such a great personality is experimenting on ultra dilutions today. Yes, it is a current scenario. He joined his hands with Dr. Jamal Issa. Dr. Jamal Issa was associated with Jacques Ben Westin till his death. So he knew the protocol of the study. But they were not experimenting on IgG antibodies and basophils. Their protocol was different. Their principle was different. But Jamal Issa joined with Dr. Montagnier, and they started experimenting on a new water memory theory. As we said, Montagnier is expert in human immunodeficiency virus, HIV virus, or AIDS virus. Okay, he wanted to experiment on AIDS virus further. According to this protocol or the principle of this methodology, every human being is individual. Of course, we know we need not tell about individualization in elaborated manner. Every mushroom and every human being and every virus or bacteria or whatever the microbe, it carries its own genome. Every genome is different. Of course, we know about it. But along with this, Dr. Mortigo and Issa, okay, they have found out a new theory called, along with the individualization, along with the genetic genome, every living creature has its own electromagnetic field, and this can be recorded. So human being is emitting electromagnetic field. It is an old theory. I'll remind you of Kirlian photography. I hope most of you know about it. Kirlian is a Russian photographer. Okay, he created a new photographical technique which can actually take the photograph of electromagnetic field emitting from the living creatures. But the problem was he was not a doctor, he was not a scientist. His Kirlian photography was limited only to the palms and soles of any creature, but it had its own depth. I hope Kirlian photography is only limited to very few fields now. So now, based on this portfolio, okay, they have created, every individual is different and every individual has its own electromagnetic field. Now, they have taken the AIDS virus, human immunodeficiency virus, which is also a living creature, which is also having its own genome and which is also having its own electromagnetic field. Now, according to this group, they have taken the dilution. It is not the ultra dilution. Initially, they did with a dilution of a human immunodeficiency virus, and the electromagnetic field is recorded and digitalized in a signal form with a special sensor. It is available on the internet. You can go and see it. The video is available. The human immunodeficiency virus electromagnetic field is digitalized in a signal form with a special form of sensor. This sensor is sent through a computer and the decoded file is printed out. And this decoded printed can be graphically represented in any personality. That means this science protocol can be reproduced successfully by any doctor. This was the protocol and they successfully did this. They have taken the serial dilutions of HIV virus and they decoded it into digitalized signals, and they have taken the printout of decoded electromagnetic field, and they could able to even send as a signal to a distal scientist sitting in a distal part through internet also. A great achievement path-breaking experimentation. And they have done this experimentation to identify the sensitivity in a highly diluted form also. That means from materialistic human immunodeficiency electromagnetic field to highly diluted, ultra diluted liquid water solution of human immunodeficiency treated water. And for their astonishment, every diluted sample was emitting electromagnetic field. Of course, they have kept a counter also, but the counter diluted water did not emit any electromagnetic field. And Dr. Vitolo, professor of physics, he also paused it through PCR test. I'm not going to detail because it will confuse the thought. Of course, their protocol was successful, but theoretically they are unable to explain how the water, the ultra diluted water could retain. See, the highly diluted water which was treated previously by HIV does not contain any material form of HIV virus in the water, but still it could emit unique, special electromagnetic field, very special to the HIV virus through the signals. That means water was carrying the electromagnetic field. They have taken the help of Mark Henry, a professor of chemistry and quantum physics. Now homeopathy is going to level of quantum physics now. According to Dr. Henry, he said whenever any chemical reaction or any reaction happens, the water, the H2O molecules will make a loop-like structures. And these loop-like structures will try to retain the energy. And these loop-like structures, Dr. Henry called it as a coherent domain. The coherent domain formed by H2O molecules are so small, very, very small, that matter cannot enter inside. But electromagnetic field or the message can easily enter in. That is where the water is retaining the memory. This is what the explanation given by Dr. Henry. And this paper was also presented, and obviously the paper is under scrutiny now. Most of the doctors are ridiculing it because of the same reason. If you accept this result, again the fundamentals of biology and chemistry and biophysics have to be rewritten. But water seems to be a mythical liquid. Now, when any chemical reaction happens, the coherent domain opens up and releases the electromagnetic field and making the PCR test positive, even though the HIV is not there. Now, it reminds me of syphilis, psychosis, and SORA of Heinemann. After the SORA comes and goes out to the latent form, after the typhoid and comes out from the body, comes in and goes out of the body, though the viral test is negative, the patient is still carrying the message of the miasm of the particular epidemic or pandemic in his body. Though gonorrhea, Neisseria gonorrhea is not demonstrable by the body today of the previously infected patient, the patient still carries the miasm of psychosis in his body. Though Treponema pallidum is not actively present in his body, the patient's blood still carries the memory of Treponema pallidum in the name of syphilis miasm in his body. Though the pulsatilla was treated previously in a material doses, the ultra dilutions does not contain the particles of pulsatilla, but still pulsatilla carries the ghost of pulsatilla, which the water is carrying in the coherent domain. Now, does this make any sense? Water dose? I know it works. As a doctor, I know I have 22 years of experience. I have been teaching organon for around 20 years. Chronic diseases, I taught around 15 to 60 times to my students. And asthma cases, even acute cases, I treat with water doses. I take only 1 pill in 10 spoons of water, dilute it and give it every half an hour. I think previous presentation I was talking about that. Today I said I am not going to present any clinical cases today. So this makes a sense. There is a hope. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. Homeopathy is the future of medicine. Now see, a water which is stored in a beaker can respond. Now according to science, the human body is 70% water. So emotions, the infections, everything can carry in a electromagnetic levels in our body. So we are literally carrying the memory in the form of electromagnetic fields in our body. I hope this will give at least a small light of hope in our minds. Thank you. Known is just a drop, unknown is a vast ocean, by Isaac Newton, the greatest scientist. So what we know about dynamization is very little. What we are going to learn in the future will be very greater. With that hope, I thank you all.